Hello, hello. Good day, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. We got a somewhat of a skeleton crew here with us this afternoon, this evening, but excited to be with you on our Electric Lawn Talk podcast. I think we're at number 14, 15. We'll see what this is when this goes live. We got Steven with EcoMo, got Dan with Electron. This is William with Sust, and Sean at Luminary Lawns is either hanging out or be joining us here soon. So just a couple of us guys. How's everyone doing this evening?
Very well. How about yourself?
Living the dream, man.
Yeah, all
I'm living
right.
Planet Positive. We finally got our new gear in, our tag going on. I'm happy to have the orange. We got the vans done up. Steven saw the
Oh,
van. Steven, what do you think?
It looks pretty slick, man. It's got some orange, it's got some pop to it. Looks
yeah, I
That's
think the
good.
awesome.
orange is nice.
Yeah, we like it a
I
lot.
like the new look, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was cool to see it in renderings. It was cool when even when the vans were blank orange, we started getting people noticing them and finally got the branding and the logo and everything on it. So it's
So,
cool.
so you went
So
the oh sorry, sorry there, but you went with the painting and then did the
Yeah, so funny enough, so on the two vans that we have, so we have three vans right now, and we have a Zuzu cab over diesel, like dump truck that helps us with a lot of the mulch and some of the other things. So the three vans are all painted orange with the stickers on them, and the cab over we're going to keep white and just kind of reverse it because these are orange with the white on the side. That'll be white with the orange lettering. I was actually going through with my business partner earlier this week on the expansion plan and what we're looking at. Likely for newer vehicles, we'll probably wrap them. And the main reason we'll wrap them is for the mileage that we put on the vehicles, it's not an Amazon truck, right? Tight routes and everything we're doing. We could have a vehicle that's 3, 5 years old with 40,000 miles on it. I rip the orange wrap off it. It's white, and any contractor for any business is going to want it. Then an orange van that they can take to Mako and paint back white and have to spend a couple $100 to do
yeah,
it. And a couple $100 here and there isn't a big deal, but it makes it a no brainer on the back
yeah,
end. So I think we're making money on the initial side to do it. These first couple, some of them are a little bit older. It's got some miles on it. We're testing it, and then the other one is my e-transit that we had from the beginning that we'll never get rid of. We'll end our season right. The last thing we ever have is going to be that van, at least for right now. So
yeah,
going forward, yes, we may wrap them, but these couple we painted. Just it was a third of the cost to
yeah.
start. So I could
That's
get
what
it
I
all
was.
done.
That's what I was gonna say because we paid like $3,400 for our wrap,
Yeah.
and I was like, man, how much is it to really paint it? Like, is it still $600, $700 to get it painted and put a sticker
I
on it?
think that we did the like the second level of Mako, so it was a base with the clear on top, so we could still buff them if we wanted to, not just the flat on it. It might have been like a
Okay,
grand, but
yeah,
again,
it's
it
not.
wasn't
Yeah,
three or four. Go ahead, Sean.
I just got quoted 30, I think 34, $3,600 to wrap a C Max. I couldn't believe it.
it's gone up,
Really?
man. It's gone up.
That's
I mean,
crazy. And the materials probably cost them like a couple $100, right? I mean, if
yeah,
that.
It's all
I mean,
about the
labor's
labor,
labor.
though.
Don't get me
it's
wrong.
everything.
Yeah.
It's on down the line. It's
It
like
was
the
a
labor's more
50%
expensive. The
increase from what we paid
material,
for the last one 2 years
same
ago.
here. Yep,
Yeah,
same here.
ours went up 30% from last year.
But
30%.
there is a downstream value, right? Depending upon how you're going to beat them up and what it is in the future. And that's what I was telling my business partner about. Like a white, like the thing will look basically new, even if it's got a couple bumps in it. You pull a wrap off of it on a what was essentially a brand new van. That's a white panel van. Like that couple grand, you'd have to argue, right? Are you going to make that back in the value of that thing being clean with low miles on it in 5 years than you are it being whatever color your brand was and not being able to recoup it, right? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say that no matter what you pay for the wrap,
Yeah.
it's absolutely worth it. I mean, even if I know it's a tough pill to swallow when you're spending a 3 or 4K on wraps. I mean, the wraps that we've had done, I think they were anywhere from 1,800 to 25, 2,600 bucks. We haven't had a vehicle wrapped in a while now,
Yeah.
but the last ones that we did, yeah, it was tough. Eating that 2 grand, that 2,500. But the reality of it is, we track our customer acquisition, right? So we track the data around the clients and how the clients found us, right? When they fill
Hmm.
out our contact request form or appointment request form on the
Yep.
website, they check the boxes that say where they found us, right? Either
Hmm.
through Google or through a friend, or they saw us in the field, they met us in the field, or they saw our vans out there. And I can't even begin to tell you, without having the data in front of me, I think it's somewhere near a third of the people that have contacted us, of the almost 300 clients that we have now, a third of them have checked the box that says, "I saw your van."
Yeah.
So, I mean,
You just
it
can't beat that Roman billboard, man.
you absolutely can't. I mean,
It's
and when we
priceless.
right, and when we first started, when we wrapped those vans, and we parked it out in front of Lowe's in the garden department on the weekend. My wife and I
Yeah.
just go drop it off and just park it there and leave it,
Yeah. Yep.
on a Saturday when everybody's coming in and out of Lowe's, and they saw that van, right?
There's a main intersection right near a sweet spot for us in two big neighborhoods. There's a moving company. There used to be an Ace there, and it closed down. But it's like all the cars come through. A moving company parks their truck there, and it's one of those: you sell a home with us, you get this truck for free. And we've taken the orange van up there since it's been done. It was just one weekend, but same thing. Park it right up there. So I agree with you, and we're definitely have already stolen that idea without even knowing it. That
Uh-huh.
I mean, why not? And
Yeah.
I will say, especially for all of us here, and I think everyone actually, I think we've seen everyone's raps pretty much. What's interesting about that all of us have done, but not everyone in the industry really has done it, and a lot of people liked from our perspective, they're not white with your logo.
Right.
They're all something,
They're
right? So
pro.
like John with what you're doing, right? They're professionally done and they're clean, right? There's nothing overdone about them. They get a message across, they stand out, and they say something versus every other one that gets a white, right? Because we run all of our vans, right? Gets a white van, gets stickers for whatever their logo is, puts it on the side, whether it's a plumbing company or landscaping company, tries to list every single service that they do because you don't want to leave out what if a customer wants me for doing this.
Yep.
And it's like it's about that's me, not what can I do for you. And that's I'll say, right, even indirectly, all of us have done that, whether it's learned that from each other or kind of have that unique trait that binds us all. We've definitely done it. I'm thinking through, right, Stephen, with yours fully wrapped, right? Dan, you guys for sure. Sean, I've seen yours. Like that's kind of interesting, right? You
Yeah.
don't see it everywhere, but every one of us have done it.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all bringing our A game, right? And every one of us are great marketers, and we all do a really good job at growing our businesses, and of course we all, learn from each other how effective it is. That when Dan's sharing how much success he's had with the attention that he gets from his vehicles being wrapped, we're all listening,
Yep.
and that's the great thing about this group is, when something's working for somebody, that's what you do. I mean, Jamar's got a great wrap on his vehicle
Oh,
now,
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
he's sharing that, Jamar's talking about the A-frames. That's
Mm.
another prime example of what he's doing that is very effective. And lo and behold, I saw in the Discord group that everybody else is working on their A-frames. Dan's got his
Yep.
A-frames working, and Gerhardt's working on his, and you better believe that we're not, but we need to be and
Yeah.
will be soon enough.
Right.
Um,
Enough of the kick in the pants, seeing
yeah,
everyone
I
else
mean,
do it.
hey,
It's like, yeah. Yeah.
if it's working, and that's the cool thing too about this group too, is like the humility. It's like w- nobody knows this secret formula, right? There's no magic bullet,
Right.
and it's like trial and error. And as soon as somebody finds something that works, everybody else is like, okay, yeah, I'll do that too.
Right.
So I think the wraps kind of fall in line with that same philosophy, you know?
Yeah. No, so let's maybe on branding and on the vehicles, right? We talked about it. And we're testing this as well. So I'll put it in here. We'll see where it chops up. But we're testing a bit more shorter format with the shorter group. So as we do get listeners and comments about it, let us know what you think about this, a little bit more free flowing than having some structure. But let's go from vans and vehicles to charging, right? Dan, I think we were looking at some of the stats, one of the more popular episodes we've had of the charging sessions with Dan, or whatever we're gonna call them going forward. We're just getting ready to start mowing next week, Steven. I know, and you guys down south, you're probably getting ready to ramp up, but haven't stopped mowing really throughout the year. Tell me about the charging systems on board. We just put two in our two big vans, and I've got some stories I can share. But maybe Steven, I'll come to you first. What's up with the charging? How's it been? Have you made any changes going into this year? What can Dan give us a lowdown on that we need to be focused on? Is it these salt batteries? What's happening? But Steven, let's come to you first.
Yeah, so we've had we're off to an interesting start this year. You know, we've built out our systems with those 3000 or 3K amp hour LiFePO 4 batteries, and everything was just fantastic last year with our setups with the onboard DC chargers. I mean, we're mostly using all Renogy gear on board with our 3000 watt inverters coming off those LiFePO batteries. Last year, everything just ran so smooth. I mean, we made some upgrades last year, upgrading from 100 amp hour to 300 amp hour batteries on some different setups. And this year's been kind of interesting for us. Kicking off the year and getting back, everybody started mowing again about 2 to 3 weeks ago. All of our monthlies or all of our people on pause have now started moving to biweekly. All of our biweeklies have now started moving to weeklies. So we're ramping back up and we've got everybody out there working again, and we're starting to run into a few issues on the charging front. Um, I was seeking some help with Dan. We had some cable issues coming from some ground wires on the van that I didn't notice during the winter time, and the guys were saying, "Oh, the battery, ran out on the van." And I thought, well, that's interesting. What's going on with it? So I turned the van on only to notice that it wasn't getting. It was only getting like 1 amp and like 40 watts charging while the vehicle was running through the onboard
Hmm.
charger. So clearly there was an issue going on. Quickly found out it was the wiring coming from the ground wire um, to the onboard charger that was like melted and fried. And God, quite honestly, I can't even believe the van didn't catch on fire because the way this
Oh,
thing
yeah,
looked, the van
yeah.
should have caught on fire. Um, and so we did some troubleshooting on that, kind of patched it up, tied it back in. It happened again. Clearly, it's the wiring.
Yeah.
So we kind of got that situation worked out. We realized we weren't using heavy enough gauge on that ground wire. In my kind of in my brain, I thought, well, all the heat runs through the hot wires like it normally would when you're putting together, like when you're wiring the amp in
Yeah.
in your sound system in your car.
Runs through the red wire, right? That's
Yeah, I
the
mean,
one
you
that
think
was
the
it.
red
That one
wire
that'll
is
zap you,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
the
yeah,
red
yeah.
wire is the one you really need to pay attention to. "Oh,
Right,
it's just a ground. Don't worry
right.
about it. It's just a ground." What I didn't know is most of the heat actually runs through the ground. So, if you're really smart in learning, you quite frankly, I could actually put a lighter gauge wiring on the red wire, but I needed to be using the heavier gauge on the black wire, right, for the
Hmm.
grounds. Dan's nodding his head. He's like, "Yep, that's right." Trial and error for us. So, yeah, we had a little bit of an issue there. We have noticed early on in the season that the 300 amp hour battery, the LiFePO battery that we're using on a rig right now, is discharging at a faster rate than what it was doing last year. I know
Now,
these things are
what do you have? Come back to that for a second, but just keeping up with a couple of the numbers and where it's going. So this is the setup you have on the Connect, right? This is for what, and you're push mowing with the Ego, so all your swappable batteries, or you have nothing like Dan, I know you run big things, so give me the vitals of that setup. You're running 221s, a hand blower. How many batteries are you starting? Like, what does that setup look like? What does that get you through in a day?
Yeah, so we're also running the zero turn with it. So we've got a small landscape trailer that we pull behind the Transit Connect. Obviously, that Z is fully charged when we leave the day, but it does
Mhm.
need one or two charges throughout the day. And we're just popping the batteries out of it, and just kind of that ABC, that
Just
right, that
taking
always,
those 10
yeah,
amp hours out, and
and we're swapping them out. We'll maybe pull 3 batteries out of it while it's not working on the next house, throw those on the chargers on board to get those things
Mhm.
charged up. So really, we're just using the Z and one of the 21-inch mowers, and of course, an array of the hand tools.
yep.
As you know, the leaf blowers can plow through any battery that you give them.
Yep.
So when you're in that leaf season, I mentioned it to Dan earlier. He said, "Well, I think we're going through about 7 kilowatts of power." Uh, that's because we're still kind of tailing off on our leaf season right now, and those blowers are working right full time on a
Okay.
2-man crew.
Yep.
That will likely change a little bit to be a little bit less once the leaves are gone and we're kind of just getting into strictly mowing. But yeah, that's kind of the setup. And, it works for us on the 2-man crews. We're doing anywhere from, 15 to 20 lawns per day per crew.
And you just
And
shoreline at night. So when you come in, you have, what do you have? 3 triple chargers in there. So you've got 6 batteries ready to go. And then the Z by itself gets plugged in. So those 6 already. So you're basically starting with 12 batteries, or what are you thinking there? And
yeah, they're,
how did you go about deciding what you did for your shoreline at night versus on the day?
yeah, well, thereabouts. I would say about 12 batteries is about accurate. I think obviously there's 6 on the Z when the Z loads up in the morning onto the trailer.
Yep.
And then we've got another 6 or 7 or maybe 8 batteries in the van for the push mower and the hand tools.
Hmm.
So 12 batteries is kind of that sweet spot for us. Obviously, when we were only using the 100 amp hour LifePo battery on board, we were having to carry more batteries. We
Hmm.
were having to carry sometimes 20, 25 batteries when we had a smaller onboard 100 amp hour LifePo battery. But when we upgraded from that 100 amp hour LifePo battery to a 300 amp hour LifePo battery,
Yep.
we had enough juice, right, in that LifePo, and the 3 Ego chargers that we're using to kind of keep things going and use fewer batteries on the van. You just kind of you got to get into that rhythm, right?
Yeah.
Where the ABC, right? You always be charging, and it just becomes that's the game, right?
Yeah.
Is just making sure. And quite frankly, if you're running a 1-man crew, I mean, you could get away with just having 6 batteries or even 5 batteries on them. I mean, you could get away with 3 batteries if you're a 1-man crew. You just need to make sure that you're continuously cycling those things.
Swap it at every house, right? Start fresh, so they all top off.
Yeah, well, just swapping it every time a battery is fully charged,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, that's the idea is you've always got to have a battery on the cradle charging, and you're trained to know, and our guys are trained to know that if they happen to come back to the van to snag another battery to go out and do some other work, naturally they're going to look at the chargers and the batteries that are on the chargers, and if there's a battery that is charged, they're going to pull that battery off and grab another battery that's not hot
Right.
and throw that thing on the charger and just kind of keep it rolling all day long.
Makes sense. Makes sense. The professor, I'm coming to you last. I'm coming to you last because you're going to be able to bring us home. But Sean, I think you're still out there. I know you just bought a second vehicle, so I'm sure you were going through this, getting ramped up. You, like me, here in Maryland, probably this week or next week is going to be the start of mowing season again. What's been going on with you? New setups? Any changes? Any problems you've had last year you solved, or new problems going into this year? And if he's not out there, then that's our answer.
He's
All right.
gone. He's gone.
Gone. Ghosted us.
No.
Right. Sean will come back. I gave him a great plug. I teed up my Maryland guy, and he
Just
Can
left.
you guys
He's
hear me?
just like, oh, no,
Oh,
there
we
he
got you.
is.
We got you.
I'm back. I had to reset.
Nice.
Yeah, so we last year we got all the kinks worked out on our battery system. our on-the-go charging process was fantastic, and so we decided this year we just throw it all out the window and start over. Um, Basically, everything that we had was set up in our the trailer that we were pulling behind the car before. With our new setups this year, we're going with trailerless setup, and so we've got to put all the on-the-go charging inside of each of the vehicles. Um, so
Trailerless. So you're going all charging inside the C-Max?
yeah, so we're gonna have all the batteries charging inside the C-Max. So we've got a couple of Life Po batteries that one set I think is around 7 kilowatts and one is around 5. We'd been running 7 in the trailer with a 2-man setup, so it's probably a little bit overkill for doing 1-man setups this year, but want to make sure we got plenty of juice to get throughout the day. We're gradually putting it together here over the next few weeks. So the first setup is just get the batteries, get the charging system in place. And we're going to be adding new solar panels on the roofs of the cars as well, so that we can recharge the main battery as we go throughout the day. But kind of like what Steven was saying, we started out initially with just a ton of batteries that we could use on all the equipment.
Yep.
And then as we got the system dialed in, working a little bit better, we were able to whittle that down. And really what that means is as the batteries were going up for the equipment, we just didn't need to replace them.
Right.
So we were running about 8 batteries with a 2-man crew most of last year, and just recharging off of that core battery all day. This year, I think if we can get 4 or 5 per vehicle with 1-man crews going out there, we should be pretty good.
At 5 amp hour, 10 amp hour, what are you? 7.5?
Most of them are 7.5s.
Okay.
We've got a couple of the 5s. Usually we'll put them on like the string trimmers,
Mhm.
just a little bit lighter to walk around with those.
Mhm.
We're going to be, running a couple of different types of batteries. I think this year we're experimenting with some newer equipment. And so, we've got our own batteries that we're,
Oh yeah, you got
we're kind of,
your Toros. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, we're trying to get those up and running. Probably a little behind schedule on that, to be honest with you guys. My business partner is the brains behind the equipment, and he just had a baby. Came a little early, and so our priority is making sure that our charging system is working.
Yeah.
And then we'll add the Toros into the loop when we can. But we decided to go DC to DC this year. Cut out the inverter. We were noticing that there's a good amount of wasted energy just to run the inverter, and so I think it's going to be a lot more efficient this year. Efficient use of the juice in the main storage batteries, but also I think we'll be able to charge some of these other batteries a little faster
Mhm.
doing it this way as well, potentially. There's some risks associated with that. I know Dan keeps yelling at me about it. Be careful, but we're trying to put in some safeguards into these. Some on-off switches between each of the chargers so we can control, where the hot connectors are and things like
Right.
that, making sure nobody's getting zapped, because we're going to be putting out about 56 volts for the Egos in particular, and I know the OSHA threshold is right around 60 volts. So we are obviously making sure our employees are all trained on how to use them properly, and what to look out for to troubleshoot things, and look out for potential issues. But also just trying to put on some safety guards on there too. So like the connectors that we got for the Ego batteries, instead of using like a traditional Ego charger, we're just going to be direct wiring these in. But there's going to be an exposed metal connector on there, and so we're trying to figure out how to get some type of non-conducting spring that we can put over that to basically prevent anybody from being able to touch it, but then it'll slide back and move out of
Be able
place as you push the battery on to clip it in. So
Interesting.
still dialing it in, but that's the plan.
Well, you owe us a Facebook video or two. The one of seeing the 30s coming along with the big case up the handles. Where
That
we're
shotgun
excited to see more
case,
of it.
the
Right?
shotgun case on those bad boys.
That'll
Yeah,
be
it's
that'll be
I
cool.
think we're actually going to turn it sideways and just lay it across. Those cases are basically pretty much the exact same width as the mower deck.
Okay.
So I think we're just going to run them sideways. We were trying to run them up the handles, but it was creating issues with being able to fold the handles and to push the what's it called? I forget what the Toro personal pace.
Okay.
As you push that in, it was bumping up against the battery. So just making some little fine tuning tweaks to it here and there, and adjusting as we go. It's going to be a work in progress, I think, for the first couple of months here, but pretty excited
keep
about
us-
what kind of efficiency changes we're going to have out of all of it.
Well, definitely keep us updated. We'll have to do a check-in in a month or so, or just bring it up on one of them when you've got a good update for us. But I definitely want to see a video. And my last question for you before we go to Dan, you said you were upgrading the solar. What did you have before? What made you change? What are you doing for your new solar?
Yes. So previously we would just run all the solar on our enclosed trailer, and
Sure.
so we had I think it was 475 watt solar panels up on there. And this year, obviously, without the going trailerless, we've got a lot less space to work with. So we're going to be looking at about 200 watts. I think is what we measured out that we can fit on top of the C-Maxes. And so just gonna fix that straight to the top of the vehicle
Nice.
and wire that into the battery.
Awesome. Well, good luck. Keep us posted. Definitely those Franken 30s that you're working on. I'm excited to see. We need a good name for them. I know you were working on some name. The Luma 30s instead of the Illuminatis or something. I don't know. You have to let us know.
Funny.
All right, Professor Dan, I have questions before you tell us about your setup and problems.
Got it.
Number one, we would never wish this on anyone, but what is the rating of fire extinguisher we're all supposed to have to handle these? I know there's A, B, C's, D's, A to C's. What do we need? None of them?
None of those. You really need the biggest one. But normally when you're running LIFO, if you're all running LIFO, you'll just get a bunch of smoke everywhere, funky smell. But I mean, there's risk of fires with insulation, as Steven kind of found out, right? Because you're burning those wire insulations, it will catch on fire.
Yeah.
And that you pretty much you need some safety inside of that. So hopefully you're running some circuit breakers or fuses between your items there that are rated not too high, because sometimes we'll overdo it, but find the closest 20-30% above what you're trying to use, and then have that to make that a safety factor. But I mean, really, it's going to be a headache, but you should have a good size one.
Yeah.
for depending on the size of battery you have, so whatever that is. So if you're running a LiFo, you probably want to go to a smaller one, or 100 amp hour battery, you probably need a smaller one. But can never be safe. Is get the biggest one you can fit in your truck, I guess.
And then you talk about 100 and I just kind of had to go through this with our charging setup, and I'm sure as some folks might already know this a lot more so than I do, but 100 amp hour battery to a 300 amp hour battery. There you go. That's a beautiful truck right there.
That's a nice color.
Maverick. Look at that. That's a good color there. Sean's showing us, if this shows up in the video, Sean just picked up a Maverick and showing us this. It's beautiful. It's the blue Maverick. Looks good, man. Looks good. Dan, the 100 amp hour to 300 amp hour change Steven made and 7 kilowatts. How am I getting from amp hours to kilowatts? 12 volt, 24 volt system.
So yeah, normally on
a
so you just multiply it. So the easiest way to know it's your amp hours times your voltage. It will give you your wattage. All right. So
and then what's that wattage number given?
The wattage number is going to be your gallons. Think about it like your gallons per minute or gallons per liter or whatever. But watts is the general what you want to know. So like if I tell you I have a 12,000 watt system, it doesn't really matter if it's a 24 volt, 48 volt, 12 volt. But if I tell you I have a 100 amp hour battery, you're like, oh, is it a 12 volt or is it a, is it a 48 volt? Because that wattage is totally different. 100 watt,
Yeah.
12 volt, it'd be like 1200 watts. With a 48 volt, 100 amp hour battery, you're looking at 4,000 watts. So that's a extreme difference.
Yep.
Just like your 120 volt on your house and your 240 at your house. So
Got it.
take the voltage, multiply it by the ampage, gets you the wattage. It
Not
also
not
all
all
your
amp
battery.
hours are the same, but all wattage is usually the same because that normalizes it out for you.
Exactly. That's going to be
Okay.
your gallon per minute, gallon per hour, your
Yep.
GPM, whatever. That's just your standard, right? Kind of like joules as well, but normally we use watts. So everybody
it.
uses a watt, 1 watt, 2 watts, 3 watts. So if you look at all your electrical stuff, your tablets, your phones,
Yep.
you look at batteries, they'll have a little label on there and it'll tell you 100 watt hours or WH. That's how many watts they use in an hour.
Got it.
So
Cool. All right. Now that I'm fully educated and on board, talk to me about your setups. Anything crazy either you're cooking up, working on, or change going into this year?
So,
What's
so
happening?
this year we're actually keeping everything the same. Everything that worked really well last year. So we are probably going to dabble in a 2-man crew,
Okay.
but that's going to be probably part time, which we currently have on our mean green setup. We have the mean green, which will last all day. We don't have a
Right.
problem with that. But the charging system is only a 100 amp hour battery, and that's perfect for a 1-man team. It brings it down to like 20%, 30%, 40% during the day, depending on what they're doing. But if you go to 2-man crew, you'll deplete that because that's how fast you're turning those batteries when you're
Mhm.
going from 15 yards to 25, 30 yards in a day. That big transition of how much you're weed eating
Yeah.
makes eats up your battery. So we'll dabble into that, but I use Anderson connectors, so it's really easy. 175 Anderson connector, plug it in, plug it out. So if we need a different battery, since we have our trailer had 2 batteries in it, so we'll just take one from there and just throw it in the truck if we need it as a spare. We have a what's it? I think it's a 2,000 watt battery that's already
Okay.
sitting there,
Yep.
and that's we keep it charged and then we'll go from there. So but that's really all we're doing. We did have one problem with a charger, which is really unfortunate because we bought a high end charger, a Victron, which, if you know anything about charging, those are considered high end products.
Yeah.
They're a more expensive one. That failed on us. It's not charging our
Oh.
batteries overnight or whatever. It starts up, gets
Yep.
overheated, shuts off. Trying to go through the warranty claim, so I haven't heard back from them. So I don't know what we're gonna do there.
Look at
What's
this.
up?
Coming off
What
the
in
top
the
shelf.
world? Look who it
Finished
is.
his dinner and ready to go with the ready to roll.
Hey, what's up?
I ain't had my dinner yet, but
All right. All right.
my audio might be terrible
Wow.
because I don't even have my mic on. I just ran in here.
Oh, wow!
man.
Look at that.
We're testing short. So Jamar just joined us. Jamar from Peaceful.
Short
down there
just
in
went to
Houston.
long.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Just
Yeah,
went too long.
exactly. Well, let's so I mean, Dan, what let's finish with you before we go to our surprise guest for the evening. Keeping it the same, pretty boring, but that's okay. I mean, if
Yep.
everything works, there's no reason not to change it. Test the
Correct.
2-man crew, and then the worst case, you need more batteries. I mean, that was our kind of philosophy going into it. We've got two vans, enclosed vans. Business partner built a pretty awesome setup within our vans to mount everything. We couldn't figure out a good place to put the backpack blowers. So we actually built like a slot. So the side door opens. I'll find a picture. I'll post this on one of our socials. The backpack blower sits in there. I can still drive my vehicle or the mowers all the way up. So I lose, I think, 3 inches overall in the van. And then we just built a big rack on top of it.
Oh,
So
okay.
the guys can pop everything in. It's got sliders on the top of it. The deep cells sit against the wall with the inverters and chargers and everything. We shoreline on the outside. We built it so we could put up to 3 batteries in there as we kind of work in.
As
Are we
you
going to do 1
grow.
or 2-man crew? How are we going to build it out? And then I think we can get we put a TOA power in there to regulate because we're going to shoreline at night, be able to leave everything on there
Yep.
so it can pick the draw for our big batteries like the
Yeah.
mean green or the green works that'll be charged. Or I think we can put up to, at least we can fit up to 4, or I think it was 6 Greenworks dual chargers in there.
Wow.
Not that I'd ever hopefully not need 12 batteries, but I can put 3 LifePos in there, 6 chargers in there, and still have a little bit of room to spare. So
Yeah.
we over-engineered the box,
The
the
box.
footprint,
Yeah. Sounds
and
nice.
then kind of filled it with what we calculated we think we might need and go from there, all while giving us, I mean, backpack blowers, especially these with the tubes, are the worst things to figure out how to hang in the
Yep.
vans. Jamar, I'm going to ask you that question too. I don't know if you're using backpack blowers or not, but how you're mounting them and what you're doing with them. We built this box. Again, I'll find a picture and I'll post it, but thank you, Dan, for sharing that. So Jamar, bring you up to speed where we are. We're doing a mini episode checking in on charging setups. We're getting ready to ramp up here in Maryland. Sean was saying what he's changing or any problems he's seen. Steven had a couple issues going on and kind of what he's doing to solve us. The professor told us what kind of fire extinguishers we need to make sure we have if anything goes sideways. What's things looking like down there with you in terms of charging? I think many moons ago you had a big old system ready to go and hooked up and solar on the roof and over engineered it. And where you at going into this year? You just built the second van. What's it going to be for 2023?
No, I haven't built the second van just yet. I'm still waiting on the van.
All right.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But actually, my dealer called me tonight and said he has one. One just came in today, but it's the shorter version. So it's the
136.
It's the 136. Yeah. So I've already had visions of getting a shorter one for maybe city, the tight city routes.
We were just looking at a 118 instead because the Transit Connects are going away. Price is a little more, but I can still put my same ramp on everything and have a consistent level. So I feel you on that.
Yeah. So, and we can speak about ramps later, me and you. Somebody else got one. I really like it. But anyway, so no, right now my charging system is down for the count at the moment.
Yeah.
It is not fail proof. That's for sure. But I have the GrowWatt inverter, and it's fairly sensitive to receiving power when it's not ready. And I think what may have happened is that we delivered too much power to it. Guys forgot to, turn it off before they turn the battery on, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we may have fried something. So it still comes on. It still charges my battery, but I get no AC power out of it. And so that's where I'm in right now. So I'm troubleshooting, and I don't know what we're going to do with the next setup. Honestly, right now with the OSO kind of powering, the mowing aspect of it, we just we're back to just carrying enough batteries for the handheld stuff.
Got it.
And so, but I have to make a decision here soon, because we are probably going to get some new people started here in the next week or so. And hopefully I go pick up that van tomorrow, get that sucker wrapped, and then,
is that a 23? You said go pick it. Is that a new one? Starting new with a wrap? We started this conversation out. We just got 2 of our vans. I'll send you a picture of the orange one, about a wrap versus paint. And what we were doing, we painted one of them because we were keeping it forever. We talked about wrapping all of our new ones because I can pull the wrap off with the mileage we put on them on tight routes. That a 5-year-old van with 40, 50,000 miles on it, it's going to be anyone's dream, any contractor's dream, not just what we're doing. So I'm sure you're in a similar boat, especially getting them wrapped down where you are.
Yeah. We're just not putting any miles on these things. It's just, it's tiny, the amount of mileage that we're putting on them. So yeah, we're kind of the same boat. Now we can keep them from denting it and scratching it too bad.
Right.
That's a whole nother thing. So
right. You got to get those inside walls are the big thing, though. We got a bread truck we went to go look at, and they had the carts, and you could just look down the side of them, and it just looked like one of those old finger things where you put your fingers through and they all show up, just all down the side, just like these little dots, like someone took a pen and just all up and down it, because that metal is so thin. I mean, works for what we need, but you just got to take care of it from the inside, and make sure it doesn't bump into anything.
Yeah, as soon as I get this one, we're going to wrap it up and going to frame the inside out of it immediately to protect it. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, keep us posted on the charging, but anywhere from obviously Steven working as maybe as few batteries as we can to Jamar, just taking what you need. I mean, that's what we did last year. We had no onboard charging. It was charge them all at night, take what we need for the day, get it done, take them off the van, and do it again. We're testing the Shoreline to be able to leave it all in the van at night for
Yeah.
our guys now, which also has them keeping it clean at night, which is good. Right? Wet season or wet grass, we'll have to work on pulling it out. But I was talking to a gentleman down in Richmond. He runs a lot of vans. He was looking at check out our ramps, the North American ramps down in North Carolina is who we use for the back of all of ours. And he was looking at one. He was like, "Oh yeah, we run ours, but my big problem is going to be the gas. I got to put a bulkhead in and kind of keep the smell." And I'm like, I would never put it, like I can't have it in my garage now, not having it for a year, that I'm going to pull a right stander into a back of a van and drive around with it all day.
I-
Like, even if you put the windows down, all it's doing is hitting that ramp in the back and coming right back into my nose. So God
Yeah,
bless
that's
them.
so
But
weird. I saw a guy. Well, he had a trailer out today, and he was pushing his stuff in there. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I don't know how you can stand the smell going into the trailer, but
Right.
hey, everybody has their
we
thing.
did get one of y'all, I'm sure down in Houston and Dallas, you haven't figured out heat wise, but I found a one of those pop fans, and it's got a solar panel on it, so it just runs anytime the sun's on it. So I didn't have to worry about wiring 12 volt to that and something else to it. So we just put one of those in. We're going to see how that goes this year, but we knew we needed some sort of airflow. It doesn't get crazy hot like it does where you guys are, but just something to keep it going. So we're testing that. What are you guys doing airflow?
We hadn't had too much problem with heat. You can feel the thermal layering if you put your hand all the way to the top with these high roofs. We've actually had pretty good success. Not worried too much about the heat. Now we did last year. We carried Eagle has a
Or
5,000
fan.
CFM fan or something like that.
Yeah.
Battery power fan. It's a Mister, and so we were like, well, I bought that. I said, hey, we doing. So we start doing like projects and stuff. We can get a bucket, put water in it, and as we're wheelbarrowing stuff past it, we can go through a little mist machine and that type of thing. And so they would keep it on, throughout the day. And then like when they open the side doors, kind of get a blast of wind in their face, kind of cool down. But I looked into doing like something on a roof. I think we're just going to stick with the solar panels on our roofs.
And are you getting a rack, or are you screwing them right to it?
A rack. No, we're definitely good. We got a rack for it. And then as far as and for us, is really the humidity is our issue, right? So fans don't do much for us.
Yeah.
Like people put like attic fans, for example, they'll put them on their houses, but down here it doesn't do anything.
It don't do nothing. Yeah, same thing in Florida. It's just you're just humid. It's just sweating anything anywhere you're at.
The latent heat, though, just that moisture in the air itself, bring its heat, and so you think you're bringing in fresh air, you're just bringing in more heat.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's hard for people. It's hard for people to think about that, because in drier areas the air is cooling.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not here down. You don't feel like somebody got a hair dryer on you.
Because of the moisture. So what do you do?
The moisture's warm.
You just got to deal with it, or you got something else you're cooking up?
Deal with it. Sweat. That's all you got to do.
Sweat and wear what was it? Polyester shirts that get wet, and then when that wind hits the shirt, your sweat makes it cold.
Yes,
that helps you out a little bit.
Yep.
So yeah, but I do got a couple questions for some of the what you guys are doing.
Bring us home. Let's do it.
All right. So for EcoMo, for Steven, do you have an amp shunt on your system?
We do. We've got shunts, and that's where you've seen the little Renogy digital display that kind of shows the amps and the watts that are either being depleted or charging.
So what you want to do is make sure you fill it up, like fill your battery up.
Yep.
And then you take a something small, maybe something that takes about so you have a 300 amp hour battery. So anything that takes about 150 watts an hour, and just let it run until it depletes itself, until the battery or the inverter shuts off. And if that gauge says, hey, I got 10% or 300 or 280, then your battery's showing some degradation. And that's normal, but you don't want to be above 80%. So if your brand new battery you just got last year or 2 years ago, and that's showing you 80% already, you probably can send that in and get warranty for it.
Yeah, well, what it's doing is, you know what, you bring up a good point, because when you have to calibrate that digital meter, right? So the idea is it comes by default at by 50%, and then you need to charge up the LiFePO for the whole way to completely charge for, I don't know, 24 hours or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And then you calibrate the digital meter to say, yeah, okay, it's at 100%, right? We haven't calibrated the meter. So
Oh.
yeah, not in a while, probably over a year.
Well,
So
well,
even though it's, go ahead.
normally when you have those meters, you calibrate it the first time you get the battery,
Right.
and that meter should stay good as long as you never disconnect it from that battery. So
Yeah.
that as long as that shunt stays on that battery, but like let's say you went from that 100 amp hour battery to that 300 and you never calibrate it again, you might need to, reset that to 0 and make sure you're
Yes.
getting all 300 amps out of your battery. Because I know a lot of these batteries that are cheaper will not pull a full capacity because of the especially when you're running a high discharge cycle. So there's something to keep in mind of depending on the cells you buy and where they're coming from, that can make a difference.
Yeah. I think what I've noticed is just the speed at which the battery is depleting is much faster. Now, granted, we do also have, we're using a turbocharger on there now as well. So
Yeah,
clearly that probably has
that's
a lot
probably
to
it.
do.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had a couple times here in the last few weeks, some guys calling me going, "Hey man, we're already at 30%." And I'm like, man, it's only it's just after lunch. I mean,
Yeah, they might be there might be just using their batteries a lot harder.
yeah.
Right.
Some leaves.
And,
Yeah.
or your ego batteries are showing this more discharging, and they're
Yep.
having to charge more.
Yep.
Right, they're more depleted.
Yeah, I can
But-
promise you those things are not holding up as
Oh.
well as they were, a year ago. But
Absolutely. So what we found really good with is not allowing them to charge to 100%.
yeah, that's a good point.
So if you don't allow the egos to charge to 100%, they tend to last a little longer. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
It's
Kind of like our e-transit. They tell me to charge
exactly
it to like 85,
because
90%.
they use the same type of battery. They use a nickel magnesium battery.
Okay.
So you want to only give 10 to 90%. Even when you buy a new Tesla, they'll tell you, hey, keep it between 10 to 90%. Don't charge
Yeah.
over 90
Uh-huh.
to prolong the battery.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you're always using the fast charger, I mean, we talked about this before, the fast charger does degrade your batteries a lot faster. So if you can start slow charging them every once in a while, that's also better for them.
Yeah.
So,
There's a question
Dan-
that came in on social here. It's from Josh Clark. It says calibrate a digital meter.
Yes.
Question mark.
Yes.
Dan, can you answer that?
You can calibrate digital meters. It just depends. You'll use another digital meter that's higher accuracy to calibrate that digital meter. But for what we're doing, we don't need calibration. This is normally done for like if you're using aerospace, medical, and some other safety factors where you have to do like a fluke meter, like a multimeter. You would have to calibrate those to say, hey, what the meter is showing is true. Is it showing 12 volts? Yes, it's showing 12 volts. So you just have to go that way. But for what we're doing, we don't need to. But I think what we're saying is just to reset the limits of your gauge.
Got it.
We're not calibrating the meter. We're resetting the fuel gauge per se.
Uh-huh. Thanks for the question, Josh.
Yeah, thank you.
But for sure, I would keep an eye on that. And then if you're melting cables, always go. The ground is your most important cable, or your negative. It's not really a ground cable. It's your negative cable. It's very important in the DC because it goes from DC to the positive, so it creates a circle. Just think about it as a circle. The electrons flow from negative to the positive. So
Is it The Hangover? What's the movie? It's a circle.
So it's trying to get to the other
Yeah.
side. So the electrons are trying to get to the other side. So that's why those cables should be the same size on both of them.
Love it.
And then for Sean, put a regulator on that DC to DC charger because you don't want to drop a low capacity battery into a high capacity battery, you're gonna have
Oh yeah,
100 to 200 amps. You're gonna have some
we we did that. We did that with even with our first charger
very
system
dangerous.
in the trailer, getting some big pops when you go to turn it on and things like that. Switch when it just floods the battery. So yeah, we learned that early on. So we got some capacitors.
Yeah,
We're
some
gonna be putting.
capacitors will help, but you also need some transistors. So I believe it's transistors to capture the flow and to limit how much goes into the battery, because you
Okay,
can limit the voltage, but you also need to limit the ampage. And that's
gotcha.
what's a little harder to do, right? Without having certain things. Because if you're putting you got a 100 amp hour battery and you hook up another 100 amp hour battery, you're gonna discharge at the highest possible rate you're able to, because one is a very low resistant battery and the other one's very high, so it's gonna deplete and try to equalize themselves in a matter of seconds. So that's where you have that high. That's why it's not recommended to put a empty battery onto a full battery.
Okay,
To level
Yeah.
them off.
Yeah,
Like
so
the
you need to
level amount.
have so you need to have a amp, some way to control the ampage flow, and then keep it within, try to keep it within 1C or 2C. That way you're not, messing up your handheld batteries in the future, and you're only getting less life
gotcha.
because you're dropping 2Cs in there in a matter of 5 minutes. I mean, I know there's
Yeah,
companies out there doing it,
I mean
but
that's basically the concept with Crest, right?
right, that they're doing the exact same thing, but you need ventilate. You need a way to limit the flow for one.
Okay,
Have the conductors that will handle the flow. So if you're using pure copper conductors or pure aluminum conductor that doesn't have insulation, you might get away with it. But again, wires will burn, it will melt. So just keep an eye on it because it creates a lot of heat. And then make sure you have some fans on there so it can help you
All you gotta do is like Chris and shorten your warranty. So
ours don't have any warranties on them, so we're
Yeah,
good.
but I just wanted to
Hey.
bring that up because I don't want people trying that at home and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
they blow up something, because it is very very dangerous. I mean it's just like taking a 120 and putting the hot leg in the ground together. That's how fast it's going to try to do it.
Dang.
So
What else you got, Dan? Anything else?
I think that was it. And then for over here at I'm having the blank mind for Peaceful Lawn over here for Jamar, that it's serviceable. You can change out the inverter or the inverter on that Gorilla Watt. I think that one has fuses in it. You might want to check those if you haven't already. And then you should be able to get that part out and swap it out. They should have covered that under warranty as well.
yeah. I'm sure I popped a fuse. I think if we send too much power to it too quick, they don't cover that.
Okay.
But
that was from the shore. So from shore or from you're talking about from your battery?
From the battery.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that you didn't use a capacitor to hook up your battery to that?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Because make on that one too, just put a fuse in between that hot wire on your lead, and you can have that.
It's already fused, but I don't think it's fused enough.
Obviously. Okay. So your fuse is too big.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Too big so it doesn't fail when something happens.
Yeah. So exactly.
Right.
So like I think I mentioned it earlier. You want to be like at 20% above where you're going to be running at, and then that way, if you do have a short, it'll break the fuse instead of breaking the wire.
Right? I think it's connected to.
Yeah, or whatever it's connected to. Yep, right. Exactly. Because normally, like that inverter can handle, I think 1x above it for like 3 seconds. So if you put in 5,000 watts, it should handle that for 3 seconds, and then boom, shuts off. Yep. Right.
And then again, I'm just assuming that's the case, right?
Yeah, because it sounds weird if the battery doesn't change. What it sounds like to me is either the batteries might have shorted.
The charging system still works. So if I hook up AC, let's say at the shop, I'll hook up AC to the Grow Watt, it comes on and will charge the battery. But from the battery to the Grow Watt out to, like, say, my Ego charger, so the AC out, I'm not getting anything on the AC out.
Okay, so you might have pulled too much AC out, meaning that like your 120 receptacle might have pulled too much. So maybe you put 4 or 5 chargers that go over the 3,000 shorted a fuse, and then that's what probably happened on the other side. What I would check, I believe they're like 30 amp fuses, like a little car fuse inside of there. I would check those, make sure they're not popped.
Now I just got to find time because man, we have been.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right. You were telling us.
Crazy, man.
It's good.
Crazy.
That's
I'm just getting in. That's why I'm just jumping on late.
Okay, that's all good. All right. Bonus question for you, Jamar, and it's my curiosity. You said go into the dealer, pick up a new vehicle, new versus used. Why are you picking a new one? You're paying. I was running some math. I had a 2021, 30,000 miles on it. It wasn't an Amazon van, work truck. They were wanting like $40K for it. I can go get a new 159 up the road, 51 sticker. I'm paying a little bit in fees and processing, so I'm probably paying 58. So I'm a 10K difference, which isn't much between the two, at least for my back of the napkin math. What did you go math wise, and what's making you pick a new one versus trying to find some used?
Really for us right now, where we are in the kind of the age of the business is, and kind of what we're looking at as far as our growth rate. For me, I always say, y'all hear me say this, it's expensive being broke.
Yeah.
It's expensive being small, right? And so I've already said in my mind that there's going to be a lot of inefficiency costs that we're going to have. But one of those things that we really cannot afford too much right now is a down vehicle, right? So I figured my first couple will be in that range of very either brand new or very close to it. And then as we kind of go from here on, we can afford to, get a clunker or, kind of risk it all. The other thought process I've had is that, we're going to keep these things for a long time. And one of the reasons why I believe that is I believe that at 5 years down the road, it's going to be hard to sell these things, honestly. And so if I'm going to pay all this money to put a wrap on it, I want it to be in its top condition for as long as possible. And just run this thing to the ground.
Right.
Because I'm not sure what the used market will be like in 5 years.
Right.
With a gas vehicle.
Yep.
Considering those things. So that's kind of where I'm at. And then ultimately what pushed me to even new is just like, we don't really have a very good used market too.
Yeah.
We got to kind of take what we can get. And right now, either it's like, I can save, I can wait, I can try to buy something, cheaper whenever it comes available, or I can get what I can get right now. And if I got to
put it into service,
right. It's like, do I not do it and lose $30,000 in April, or go ahead and do it and then make this $30,000 in April, which is what van can produce for us, right?
You know what, man, and you bring up a great point, because whenever we got the Transit Connect and we had it wrapped, we didn't spend a lot of money on it. I'm of the Dan school of thought, right? We're going to buy the clunkers and we're going to keep them on the road.
Yeah.
But we put, we bought this Transit Connect for, I don't know, 4 years ago for $6,000. And then we spent close to $3,000 on the wrap, and we had it for one season and the transmission went out. You guys probably remember this. I think we were talking back then. And
I think it was in the shop for like 3 weeks, I believe.
It was like a month almost, and it was in the middle of the season. So for two reasons, Jamar, you're absolutely correct. You can't afford to have a down vehicle, because it was a complete scramble for us to use the Yeti, portable power stations for charging the batteries, to keep these guys going, to keep everybody happy. The transmission went out. Basically, the guy from the shop called me and said, man, if you hadn't spent $3,000 on a wrap, I would tell you to just trash this thing, because it's going to cost you $5,500 for a new transmission. And I'm like, well, shit. I can't get my money back on the wrap. I'm into it for $9,000 now. And I thought to myself, I'm like, man, maybe I should have got a better van.
Right.
You know?
And also the way I look at it is like, we're not like, we haven't reached a point of scale where I'm making a bunch of money
Same
Yeah.
here.
that makes a difference in my life.
Right.
Right. So either we're gonna run this thing up,
Yeah.
right, and get the numbers that makes a difference. Because right now, I don't want to come off as like I got this black privilege or anything like that, right? Or anything like that. But it's really like an extra $10,000 over 5 years.
Yeah.
It won't make a difference in my life.
Right.
Like, not a meaningful difference.
Yep.
Right.
And I know a lot of people, they're the opposite school of thought. You know, they need to save, they pinch and scrimp. I understand. I'm just not of that mindset. Not now. It is not until I can get to the point where we're at a scale enough for a 5% price difference to make a difference.
Right.
Right now, it is production, getting this. I look at it like a rocket ship getting off the platform. Right, there's a ton of energy spent.
Yeah.
Right? There's a ton of noise. There's a ton of fuel being burnt, smoke, everything. And you can see all this noise, but nothing's happening.
Yeah.
The rocket is just sitting on the launch pad, but
Yeah.
it's just rumbling, right?
Yeah.
But if you turn it off, it doesn't get off. It doesn't get off the ground.
Yeah.
Once it starts to creep, if you turn it off there, it'll fall back down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not till you reach a certain level where you can coast, and then you can turn off the energy. And that's kind of where I'm looking at now. It's like we're at this point where like we're exuding a ton of energy and a ton of money to get to a good altitude to where, you know, the maneuvers you're making are really, you know, really profitable. And for our business, and I'm not saying everybody needs to be like this, but for where I stand, you know, we're just we overpay for good talent. We overpay for software. You look at a percentage wise of revenue, right?
Yeah.
Overpay for storage and lease space.
Yep.
You just overpay for things when you're small.
Yeah.
And until we earn our way up there, you know, it's just kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Jamar off the top shelf, man.
Yeah, or it just eats into what little overhead you have, right? You know, I mean, we're faced with the same issue too. I mean, we're not a big company. You know, like I said, I think we did $500,000 last year, and you know, we'll hit that 750 number this year, but for some reason, I really don't project us having any more available. You know, I'm like,
amazing where it all goes.
When do you finally get to the point where, you know, in my own head, I'm like, man, if we're doing $750,000 in revenue, we got to be crushing it. You know, I'm living like a king, but the reality of it is, it's like, it's not a whole lot different than making 80 grand a year. You know,
if you think about it, like, and everybody talks about this, like these kind of price or these like revenue ranges for our businesses, right? Like, you know, that 400 to, you know, 800,000, you're just making a bunch more noise, but you ain't making more money.
Yes.
Right.
It's more headaches.
It takes infrastructure. It takes people. It takes, right. And it's not until you can get to that million with that extra 200 grand starts to like, okay, we can make a difference. I can put an extra 50,000 in my pocket. I can put an extra 100,000 in my pocket.
Right.
Or we can even just start storing things away. And now very few companies ever make it there. Right. But I don't think most people, I don't think very many companies intend to make it there or even know that they can.
And that to stay on that last point though, Jamar, you talked about kind of the outlook or the privilege and wanting it to kind of view that way. That last point you said is the comment I want to end with is, and most people don't think they can. You talk about $10,000 affecting it one way or the other. And you're right. It's a mindset shift from being that's just irresponsible with money to not worry about every single cent and every single dollar. But there becomes a point in the business where you have to look at it where if I can automate away or I can have someone else take on something that's below a certain dollar amount, hour amount, labor amount, something like that, where your time can be better spent. Now, there's a risk of people using that as an excuse to offload everything and try to do nothing. Oh, I'm going to own this business and not actually work in it at all. Then you're definitely not going to make any money because you're paying away you got to own some part of it. But to that same token, if you're saying, yeah, exactly right, run that math, 10 grand over 5 years where this thing can get active in April and make me 30, right? Do that percentage. 30, if you just use it for that 1 month over those 5 years, you're still making whatever X it is. Now there's other costs associated. I get that's not the exact math, but you're spot on. And I think that for me, about 3 years ago, I had that realization where you just have to kind of break the mold of the game, and you're not taking the game that's given to you. You're molding the world, or at least you're able to bend it a little bit around your philosophy or your idea and how you want it to be. There's don't be responsible with it. Don't be silly with it. Don't think everything should come to you easy. And there's don't take everything at face value as well, because you don't want to get walked over or taken advantage of. But I think that sweet spot, and you hit it, of like, it's our business and I want it to be big. So I shouldn't sweat, which we could even call that the small stuff. One of my guys was talking to me about what we are leasing a new shop. It's got 2 bays in it. And we're trying to decide which rack and storage cabinets we wanted to put in. And one of them was one of the Husky ones, like at Home Depot. One of them was Linex and one of them wasn't. And it was like a couple $1,000s difference. And I'm like, dude, I don't care, not in a bad way. And B, you get the one with the Linex in it because someone's going to run something into it. And that thing's now a bulletproof tank that who cares, right? Over the span of, we have this business for however long we have it, it's going to be great. So it's a silly example, but my point of all that is I agree with you. And if we take away anything from wraps and ramps to chargings and setups and what we're thinking about and problems we're facing, right? I know we got into a little bit of the small stuff today of what's the charging going to be and what problems we faced. But I think even if we listen back to this, it's going to be like, yeah, okay, that was a problem that we figured out, we solved it, and we moved the heck on because we got bigger fish to fry and customers to serve. And that's what we're going to go do. And I think this is, for me, if nothing else, I'll be selfish and take it, therapeutic as we get into what's going to be our high season in April, to just run and know that it's all going to work itself out, because it has to, right? Tall grass is going to grow. We're going to have to make it short, and we're going to have to keep our customers happy.
Don't doubt yourself. That's why I'm in a predicament that I'm in right now, because I doubted myself and I didn't order the van like I needed to order it 4 months ago, right? But when I look at my forecast, and let me say what you said earlier about the numbers. The reason why I know I can't sweat the $10,000 is because I know my numbers.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it takes, right?
Yep.
And even then, I doubted myself this year, because what's happening right now in our business, I wrote it down in our forecast.
Yeah.
But thinking small, I go, well, let me not get the van yet. Let me not get that yet. Let me not hire yet. Let me not. And then now everybody wants their stuff done. And we're going to have
You're trying to play catch up. You're trying to do what you could have done over a couple months. Not easy, but worked your way through it.
Yeah.
And been in good shape. And they're like, I've got 2 weeks to put something online. Yeah, we're
right. And that's where we are now. Is like, we're overbooked. Right. Yeah. And so and then the other part about that $10,000, it's not about, I say this all the time, it's not about price, right? It's about cost.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when I say cost, I mean all the cost, right? So what does it cost you to not have something as opposed to having something?
Right.
So we're talking about $10,000 over 5 years, or we're talking about $30,000 a month over 5 years.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And so those can seem like big numbers to people. I get it. Right. But I get to hang out with people like Steven at EcoMo, and that number makes me feel like a kindergartner.
Right.
Right. And so I know it's not a big number, but I know it's too big to ignore.
Yep.
And to think small on it right now. The recession is canceled.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Canceled.
And everybody knows this business. Springs are short.
Yep.
Right. Springs are short in real life.
Yep.
Springs are short in the landscape game, and you need to take advantage of it. Don't be stupid. Know where all your dollars are. Protect yourself. I have a game plan. If this thing goes kaput, I am a risk averse person.
Mhm.
Right. I don't go to strip clubs and casinos.
Yep.
Right. And so
Wait. You don't go to casinos?
I know.
It's a family show.
I didn't say
Remember what happened in Vegas. Don't lose sight. But yeah, so I'm a risk averse person. So all this stuff is planned out, but it's not financial advice. It's not advice for anybody else.
Yep.
This is just how I've set myself up, and the mindset that I have around what we got going on. My family is taken care of. My house is taken care of. Our bills are nothing, right?
Yeah.
We don't need anything. I
Yeah.
am a privileged individual. We don't need anything. I still have my job. I'm not needing, and I think that's also part of my power of being able to price and ask people for the sale, because they can hear to my voice. I really don't care if you say yes or no.
Right.
Right. Your neighbor will, and then you'll say yes later, and the price is going to be higher. Right. And so it's up to you.
Well, even put that too, though, and let's on this, right? Because we talked about the interesting similarities, Jamar, at the very, very beginning, which was going to be our short episode. Thanks for joining and adding to. No, I'm just kidding. Was how, even if you look at our wraps, like we did ours, like every one of us, whether it was directly or indirectly, is making a statement with what we're putting out there, not getting something white and just putting some stickers on it, right? Believing in building something for that. So you talk about, and I know being a little tongue in cheek, right? Having the job and that conviction comes through because it doesn't matter, which is true, but it's also conviction and belief in what you're offering. And I think that piece of a value sell, right? Of the value we're delivering, not a low cost race to the bottom. Oh, I can do it for $2 cheaper. Right? That type of customer isn't the customer we want, right? We all want to be magnets, not jails. I want to attract the right customers I want. I want those the ones to be around me. I don't want to get someone trapped in because think they have the lowest price, or right. They're probably not trapped in because they're going to go shop it for someone $2 cheaper next year. So for me, I think this whole thing is mindset, right? Outlook, whether it's the outlook and mindset we have in the product we're putting out there for our customers, in what we're showing in our brand and vehicle, whether it's the outlook or mindset we have against charging and thinking about how we're going about our day to make sure our guys are going to be successful, or our little bonus section of the outset or mindset of new versus used and the cost of something versus right the price you're paying for something. I think this should be a good mindset for me, a good level set of going into a season that starts to get a little goofy, right? We're worried about Loctite and bolts and wheelbarrows staying together this morning, and I'm like, man, we got to be focused on the big thing. Not, I can't be worried about this, and putting the right people in place, having trust with the right people, and having a group like this to be able to lean on and ask those questions for. Right? I guess I'll end kind of from an audience perspective. Like, subscribe, review, tell us what you think. This went all over the place, but I'll be curious to see if that's a good thing for us or not a good thing for us, to just free flow and see how it goes. But two, let's start some conversation, right? Josh, appreciate some of the questions you had, but comments, questions, thoughts, other things we want to talk through. Let's try to get a little bit of feedback from it. So maybe I'll do instant reaction around the horn, and then let's be done. So Dan, coming to you first. Instant reaction, thoughts, or anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good, man. It was a good conversation. I learned some things.
Cool. Steven?
Same. Good stuff. I mean, I'm excited for this year for everybody, and I'm just so glad that we've all come together and been together as long as we have. Here we are. We're on the heels of a big year. We've all got some big, hairy, audacious goals in front of us, and let's go. Let's go crush it.
Awesome. Sean, you still with us? I'll give him 2 more seconds. One more second. He went driving in the Maverick and he hung up on us. All right, Jamar, you got the last word. What do you got?
No, that's it, man. I just I appreciate it. I think I've said enough. Just go get it. Count your cost.
Love it. Awesome. Another one for Electric Lawn Talk. You are the best, and we will talk to you next week.
Peace.